All right, hello. We're going to go ahead and go through the chemistry of carbohydrates. It's kind of an activity, but I know it's kind of written like a lab. But I'm going to show you what you would have done, and I'm not actually going to do it because it's really just cutting out paper models, and we're going to do a couple of these as we go through. We're going to do one for carbohydrates today, then next week we'll have one on lipids and fats, and then also one for proteins. Bottom line is we're just using paper models to sort of study the molecules a little bit and understand a little bit about each of them and what's unique about them. And so today is on carbohydrates. Remember, key things about carbohydrates, there's three categories. You have monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. And monosaccharides are just single sugars, disaccharides two sugars, di stands for two. And polysaccharides is anything that's three or more, like a starch has got hundreds of molecules of glucose connected together. So just three or more. The model we're going to make today is just three, so that we're not getting too complex. So the packet that I sent out to you in PDF format was this packet that has chemistry of carbohydrates on it. And the first page is really just a lot of reading. It talks about the water molecule. Remember, water is very important when it comes to biology. Water is going to be special in terms of how it helps us to make molecules. And then we'll also talk later on about how water is important to help us to get to break down molecules as we digest them a little bit. And so the first thing is to go through and read that part about the water, because it's going to play a role here in some of the questions that you're going to have to answer are going to assume that you read that water portion. So make sure that you do that. When you go to the second page, you're going to see some molecules drawn at the bottom down here. And so those molecules are going to be important. You're just going to basically count atoms off of that. Because some of the questions are going to ask you how many hydrogens are in glucose and how many oxygens and carbons and so on. And you're just going to count off those molecules. And one of the things to note is that a lot of these things have the same formulas. Remember, those are called isomers of each other. And isomers have the same formula, but they're different shapes. Remember, shape is extremely important in biology. The difference between glucose and fructose is they have the same formula but a different shape. And that different shape is what allows it to taste different as it hits my taste buds if I'm consuming it. And so it behaves differently chemically speaking. And so that's kind of an important concept to understand as well. But in terms of the lab, you're going to go through and it's going to ask you to look at the glucose molecule, which again is at the bottom of that page, and just answer some questions about it. And then it's going to get down here to the bottom of the page here on the other column, and so start talking about disaccharides. And for disaccharides, it's going to ask you to cut out two of the molecules. And so for sucrose, which is table sugar, I'm going to try to connect a glucose and a fructose. And the first question it's going to ask you is, do they fit together nice and neat like a puzzle piece? And the answer to that would be no, because you don't have like a little notch fitting into like a little groove. In order to do that, if you look at this, I would have to take off the OH off one and the H off the other in order for them to create this little sort of notch and groove thing. And so that's where the H and the OH come off. They would actually go together to make water. And then what happens is my two then remaining pieces of monosaccharides can fit together, and that's what's going to form my new bond, which is going to be my disaccharide. That process is called dehydration synthesis. Dehydration because I lost the water, and synthesis means to make, and so I'm making that new bond between the two monosaccharides to form my disaccharide. And so if you were to do that, it would look something like this. That's my middle molecule. In this case, this is maltose and not sucrose because maltose is two glucoses hooked together. But it's the same idea. I cut off my H and my OH here. I made my water right here. And then I made my new bond in between the two monosaccharides. And so that is what we would have done in class as well. And again, you have some questions to answer about that. Don't forget, when it's asking you about the molecular formula, that it's not just like the two glucoses added together. It's the two glucoses formulas added together minus the H2O, because I lost my water molecule, so I have to take out that H2O. Okay, so don't forget about that part. Then it's going to talk about polysaccharides. So if you go through the polysaccharides portion, it's going to ask you to build a chain of three, which is we're going to call starch here. But I did that, but notice that I also have two water molecules here now. So for basically I get a water molecule for every bond I had to make. So I had three molecules, I only need two bonds to make my three connected together. And my end ones, they stay in place because they're not reacting with anything yet. And so bottom line is I only have two water molecules that get produced from three molecules of monosaccharides. So I put those together and I get my polysaccharide, and it's going to ask you some questions about that. And then on the last page, it's going to have your 10 analysis questions, and this is kind of the thing that really kind of keep and focus on. This is going to be worth more points than the other parts are. You're going to get some points for the other parts, but those are really just counting and answering some questions about the models and things. This is the part that shows me that you understand it. And so make sure that you're careful on those last 10 questions, because that's the part that it's really going to focus and be the bulk of your grade on this assignment. Okay? The last page that was in your PDF was just a page of the models just to look at. And so again, so you have a reference. If you wanted to print them out and cut them out and do it as it tells you to do them, feel free to do that, but you don't have to, because I already kind of did that for you. Again, if you need to look at this over again, you can always rewind it and look at it. But use your notes, use this video to help you go through and answer those questions, and then make sure your assignment is turned in on time. All right, you guys have a great day. Bye.